Welcome back, class. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be going over the solutions to our Google form answers. I kind of do this every week. Next week we'll be doing some new material with some slope. But for right now we're just going to go over the Google form. There's, I think, 3 problems in the Google form. But again, thank you for those for participating. Again, this is all voluntary. I know some of you have, expressed interest in boosting your grade for this, this period of time, and you can do that. Just send me an email and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. But again, hopefully you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your family. That's kind of first priority. Stay healthy, stay safe. But let's jump right in here and kind of look at what we're doing. Here. So what you have in front of you is the Google form and the PowerPoint that we were doing on last Monday. So the idea is that we're in part 3 of week 5, and we're still dealing with slope, which is on the Cartesian coordinate plane. This is the coordinate plane that you see in front of you. Slope is basically the tilt of a line. That's what we talked about. It's kind of how a line is tilted up or down, right or left. And that's what we're basically looking at. Now, there's a couple different vocab words that we've focused on. We focused on what a graph is. This is obviously the graph. This is the coordinate plane. Coordinates themselves are the things that we're finding slope on. It's the actual numbers. It's how we find individual dots on the graph itself. That way you can draw lines. Again, 2 coordinates can always lead to a line, so you kind of know which way it's tilted. The big thing was what we talked about on Monday was there was a couple different types of slope, right? There was positive slope, which is this case. This is positive slope. It's going up to the right. That's kind of positive slope. If it tilts down to the right, so that means like this, that is a negative slope. So it's decreasing as you go from left to right. You're going downhill, if you will. Those are kind of the things we talked about on Monday, so hopefully that made sense. It was a little bit of new stuff, a little bit of old stuff, kind of a mix between them. But again, our focus right now is based on slope. Can we find that rate of change? And we're going to talk about what we're going to do with that. So let's kind of jump right in and let's get to our 3 problems here. Okay, so let's go right to the... Okay, so what you're seeing in front of you is 2 coordinates. We have 1113 and 1815. Now that's clearly off the graph. I'm going to just kind of show you where those things would land. So 11 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then up 13. Up 13 would be way up here if you can see that. That's 1113. That's this first check mark right there. That's this first one. And the second one, this one right here, is way off of our graph. I mean, this 18 over 15 up. I mean, it is really far that way and then really far up in the air. But when you think about that, what that's doing for my slope is that it's basically making my line look kind of like this, because we know that that next dot is over and up from there. So it is a positive slope if you can think about it that way. That's really the only reason why I have this graph here. You were not required to graph at all. That wasn't one of the priorities on this particular lesson. It was just to find the slope between these coordinates. We had a simple formula for that. The simple formula is m equals, and then you subtract the y numbers, you put those on the top, and then you subtract the x numbers and you put those on the bottom. That was kind of our formula. Now, again, what we were talking about with these coordinates is which one is which. So I'm going to kind of switch up my color here. Let's talk about which ones are my y numbers on these 2 coordinates. The y numbers are the back numbers. These are my y numbers. It's always the back 2 numbers. And you can put them in any order, but those numbers have to go on the top. So when I do my formula here, the 13 and the 15 go on the top. And I usually just go front minus back. That's the easiest one. 13 and the 15, just subtract those. The x numbers, if I switch up my colors, those are the front numbers. It's always alphabetical order. That's why they're called ordered pairs. It's a pair of numbers. They're in alphabetical order. And so I'm going to go the 11 minus 18. Again, x numbers are on the bottom, y numbers are on the top. If you can remember that, you'll get slope right every single time. But let's go through the answer here. So let's go to a different color. So what we're going to get for my slope, if I write this down, I'm going to get 13 minus 15, which is a negative 2. So if you have a calculator in front of you, you could just type that in. In fact, so if you see my calculator in front of me, I'm going to type in this 13 minus the 15 that you're seeing. 13 minus 15, and you get a negative 2. So there's the top number. So if I you know, if I clear that back out, and we'll go back and we'll go back to my actual graph here. So so we get the -2 on the top. Now on the bottom we get the 11 minus the 18. We get a -7. Again, if we just try and see that, so here's what I have. I have 11, and we're going to subtract the 18 from it, and so I get a -7. Let's jump right back in. So these are my two numbers that I have here. I have the -2 over -7. Now the two negative signs, top and bottom, would actually cancel each other out. So I'll be left with 2 over 7, and that is the answer we're looking for. That's the slope. It's the tilt of the line. Now what that stands for, what we talked about in class, this stands for rise and my run. That means I'm going to rise 2 for every 7 that I run, and I always go to the right. So from this dot up here that you can see, I would go up 7 and then, or sorry, up 2 and then run 7 to the right, and that's why this graph is way off. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's jump right to the next problem, but that was the answer I was looking for. I was looking for 2 over 7. That's the fraction I'm looking for. All right, let's jump into the next one here. Let's see if I can transition. There we go. Okay, so the next one, we have 3, 9, and -6, -1. Again, I'm using my my basic formula here. So my formula is m equals, that's what the m stands for slope. I don't know why, that's just the letters that they picked. It's y minus y over x minus x. That's the numbers that they always go by. So again, labeling my numbers here. My y numbers are the back numbers. Those are my y numbers. So on the top, here's what we have. We have 9 minus the -1. 9 minus a -1. Again, I always just go front minus back. Then on the bottom, if I switch up my color again, my bottom numbers are my x's. Those are the front numbers in each of those coordinates. So that's the 3 minus the -6. Okay, so now what's going to happen here? If I go to my different color, these two negative signs, they're double negatives, right? It's a negative. Those are going to cancel each other out. So what we're going to actually be left with here, we're going to be left with 9. That's weird. My iPad does not want me to write that. 9 plus 1. And on the bottom, I'm going to have a 3 plus 6. It's a double negative situation. Two negative signs cancel each other out. That's just kind of how it works. And so what we're left with here is we're left with 10 over 9. That is weird how that's not letting me write that. All right, and there is my slope. That's the slope I'm looking for. So 10 over 9. That's rise and run. So if I label those 10 over 9, that is my rise over run. Okay, that's the second problem. Let's go to my last problem here. Third problem now. We have 4, 4, and 8, -10. So again, if you want to graph these, you can go do that. So I have the graph right here in front of me. In fact, let me just do that. 4, 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's that first dot, that's that one. The next one is 8 over, and then 10 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, how I knew to go there so fast. Remember, the front number's right and left, the second number's up and down. So that's 4 over 4, up, because it's positive, so positive and positive, so to the right and up. Then the one is, the 8, 10 is over to the right 8, because it's a positive 8, and then down 10, because it wasn't a positive 10, so I went down instead. So it looks like on this particular problem, my slope is actually negative. It's going down to the right. So it is a negative slope. So we're expecting my fraction here to be negative. That's the idea. That's why we call them positive and negative slope. It kind of tells you what my numbers are going to turn out to be. But let's go to my formula here. So we have y minus y over x minus x. Okay, so that's the generic look. Plugging in my numbers here. My y's are the 4 and the -10. So doing those numbers, what I have here is I have a 4 minus a -10. So the double negative signs will cancel there, just like the last problem. And the other numbers that we have the x's. Those are my 8 and 4 in no particular order. So I'm going to go front minus back. So I'm going to go with 4 minus the 8. 4 minus the 8. Okay, now let's do the math here. I'm going to switch colors up. Okay, so 4 minus the negative. So this is going to end up being a plus. So this ends up being 4 plus 10. That's weird. Why won't not let me write that 4? 4 plus 10, there we go. And then on the bottom, we have the 4 minus 8 still. There's no double negative sign there, so those stayed. So here's what we're going to be left with. We're going to be left with 14 on the top, and on the bottom, we're left with 4 minus 8, which is a negative 4. And that's my answer. Now, that is a negative slope. That fraction is negative. There's one negative sign in there. So what that tells me, because it doesn't matter actually where you put the negative sign. I know that seems kind of weird. This is still the same fraction. Negative sign could go to the top, negative 14 over 4. That tells me the rise is dropping. Ooh, I almost wrote run. So the rise is I'm dropping 14, and then I'm running 4 to the right. That's what a negative sign means. Drop and then run. It always goes to the right. But again, that's all 3 prompts on the Google form. Again, for those who are participating, thank you for that. Again, these are only voluntary. It's not required by any means. It's just one of those things I think it's important that we get to try some of these. But again, if you're interested in boosting your grade or whatnot, or interested in changing that, just let me know by email. I've had a couple people do that already. Thank you for those who are participating. Keep doing that each week. It does make it easier to transition into Algebra 1B for next year. But again, the priority here is take care of yourself. Stay healthy, stay safe. That's just one of those things. Like it's just a no-brainer. Like this educational stuff doesn't mean anything without you guys. It's just it's first priority's got to be health and safety. But again, thank you for everything that you're doing right now. And again, take care of each other.